What did your family argue about this year at Thanksgiving? Well, my brother-in-law found out that my sister was cheating on him. She was texting the guy and didn't realize her husband was standing behind her, peeking over her shoulder. Plot twist. My sister revealed that she only did it because she found out he was cheating on her with someone from work. Then, they went on a 20 to 30 minute argument of, well, I only did that because you did this. They both stormed out at the end. The rest of the day was peaceful, but it served as a good reminder of why you shouldn't marry someone after only knowing them for 2 months. Story 2. ICE. Aunt number 1 decided to go all in, unprompted, saying that Trump is terrible and what he's doing is awful. Aunt number 2 immediately started yelling at her, "No, he is not. We have an illegal problem." I lost my cool and yelled at Aunt number 2 that it's not just illegals being arrested. They are not checking first, etc., etc. Then I yelled at Aunt number 1 for bringing up politics in the first place, since she knows it's a sore subject for me and how Aunt number 2 feels. It felt like she was intentionally stirring the pot. Finally, I yelled at everyone to change the subject or things wouldn't go well, as this is very personal and raw for me. Aunt number 2 claimed she didn't know anything about legal citizens being detained, and then she shut up. ICE raids have affected my husband's family and mine firsthand. It's a sore subject, to say the least, and not one I'm willing to be silent about. We were at my house, so I wasn't going to be the one to leave if they were going to argue about it. The first aunt got upset with me and left, even though I agreed with her. She didn't like that I yelled at her for bringing up politics, and she said she won't be coming to Christmas since she annoys me so much, which I've never said. I feel bad that I lost my cool instead of having an actual discussion. Had it been any other political subject, I would have kept my mouth shut, and Aunt number 1 likely would still have left after Aunt number 2 yelled at her. Story 3. My uncle pulled the old cut a square right in the middle of the pie trick to be funny, and Mom lost her shit. Story 4. That I am a loser for having 3 dogs and no relationship. This came from my grown-ass man-child uncle who is 35 years old, a deadbeat father, and still living with his parents, my grandparents. He also has no job, bought a brand new Tacoma last year, and does not pay rent. I, on the other hand, have no kids, bought my own house, and yes, I am single because I am focusing on my career. But apparently that is bad because I am single. And while my grandparents defended his trash talking and said I needed to find a man, I took the food I made, walked out of the house, and came home to my dogs. Petty, yes, but screw that. It took me a very long time to grow up and learn to stand up for myself. I hope you all had a better Thanksgiving, whether alone or with loved ones. Story 5. My dad yelled at me and said he feels like he has to walk on eggshells around me. He said he can't make any comments because I take them all as criticism, which honestly they usually are. Or I tell him they are topics I would rather not discuss, like very personal details or my finances. He also complained that I set so many boundaries that he can't talk to me. For example, when I saw him last, I asked him to stop apologizing for my parents' divorce 8 years ago and to stop telling me directly that I'm living in sin for living with my boyfriend of 6 years. And then he told me he was feeling guilty and angry that he sat alone in the living room all day, which he could have done at home, even though I spent 8 hours cooking Thanksgiving dinner. I had done as many tasks as I could in the living room and dining room and took several breaks to hang out with him there. The fight started because I needed help cutting the ham to put it away. I'm a vegetarian, and I didn't want to follow his suggestion to put it outside on the patio because we have raccoons. Can't have a holiday without a dysfunctional family. Ironically, I've spent my entire childhood walking on eggshells around him because he is bipolar and often unmedicated. Story 6. An entire pie went missing. My father-in-law searched around town for a bakery to make a mince pie. The box was on the table with the other pie wrappings, but the pie itself was gone. Nobody saw it. Nobody ate any. The dog denied all knowledge. Accusations of thievery, incompetence, senility, treachery, gluttony, and perfidy were thrown around. A thorough search was conducted. Every warehouse, farmhouse, henhouse, outhouse, and doghouse in the area. Emotions are raw. Glances are suspicious. Accusations are cast broadly. The pie remains missing. No clear suspects. Story 7. I was on the phone with my mom while she was cooking dinner, and she was asking when I'd be there since my sister and her family were already arriving. As I was about to respond, I heard my sister walk in and say, "Hugh, hang up on her." And then her husband grabbed the phone and started making fun of me, saying they didn't want me there. So I hung up. I don't even ever do anything to anyone, but they make fun of me because, and I quote, "You're an easy target because you just take it. I've been starving all day with almost nothing to eat at my house. just a single slice of pizza left over from yesterday, and was really looking forward to dinner. But I guess I'll just eat that and play games now. My mom called me back about an hour later, asking if I was almost there, and I told her no because they won't stop bothering me. She brushed it off and said I was overreacting, and maybe I am, but I have to deal with this every single time I see them. Them meaning my sister's family. It's getting so exhausting. I never yell or call them names, but they make me feel so frigging worthless every time they are anywhere near me. Happy Thanksgiving, I guess. Story 8. Someone turned off the oven when the turkey was cooking. We ended up eating 2 hours later than planned. The culprit has yet to come forward. Story 9. It's always shots at me, and me only. Why aren't you more successful? You're divorced? You only make $85,000 a year. I work in IT. Why can't you be more like your brother and make $200,000 doing heavy machinery? Also, my brother has a different girl every 2 months and he's 40. I have always been the whipping boy in my family. This time, I told them all to F off, stormed out, grabbed my dog, and went to McDonald's. I got a Big Mac combo for myself and some nuggets for the pooch, and we sat there watching The Simpsons in the parking lot on my iPhone. I also told the family I'm not coming for Christmas this year because I've had enough. Story 10. My husband's aunt and godmother has restarted her usual shtick with me and my sister-in-law, my husband's brother's wife. She refuses to address us directly, avoids looking at us for longer than necessary, and if she absolutely must say either of our names, she deliberately uses a slightly incorrect version. Think Kate instead of Katie, or Anna instead of Anne. Because of a last-minute guest and an unexpected seating choice by Grandma, the only remaining dinner seats were directly beside and across from this aunt. I made a last-second decision to eat in the living room instead, because I value myself, and pretending everything is normal when the person across from me cannot even look in my direction did not feel right. This sent everyone fluttering, and I got several looks and questions, which I answered honestly. I was eating where I felt comfortable. That alone kicked off a wave of familial tittering. After dinner, I told my mother-in-law, the aunt's sister, directly that the aunt's behavior was the reason for my seating choice, and that she has started being rude to us again after a stretch of good behavior. I can't wait to see the fireworks that will come from this, as the situation is still unfolding. Story 11. I drove 2,000 miles to spend Thanksgiving with my family, and they were practically gone the entire time, leaving my husband and me home alone to prepare the entire meal. I blew up because we had spent a lot of money to come out, and all I wanted was to spend time with them. But I ended up doing all the work for 3 days straight. They would start to help, and then just leave without saying a word. When I expressed my anger, they blamed me for overreacting and said, "Nobody asked you to do everything. We were only trying to be helpful, and without us, there would have been no food at all." My mom was really excited to host Thanksgiving at their new apartment, and kept telling me how much she was looking forward to it. I had no idea they would act this way. It mattered a lot to me because my grandma usually hosts Thanksgiving, her favorite holiday, but she is getting older and is often sick. When I noticed nothing was getting done, I stepped in because I wanted my grandma to have a good time at the very least. I love my grandma so much. But also, my other family members had been messaging me constantly in the weeks leading up to our arrival, counting down the days, making plans, and generally acting excited. When I actually got there, though, they treated me as if I were invisible. Story 12. Thankfully, nothing major this year. My aunt tried to start an argument about sick leave, claiming it makes sense for an employee to have none or be fired once back because the company supposedly can't operate without them. I told her I didn't want to discuss it. A few minutes later, she tried again. I restated that I wasn't interested and didn't want to discuss it today. Thankfully, that was the end of it. We were able to listen to GM's stories and have a few laughs. It was really nice. Later, my parents fought, and I didn't tolerate it. I genuinely don't understand why they do that. It's petty, rude behavior. Mom says it's because the kids are home, even though we don't do anything. There's an annoying level of narcissism there. I called her out directly, saying it's both her and my dad, but she refuses to ever acknowledge anything is wrong with her. Oh, and I found out they had redone my childhood room, and my mom got rid of what was left of my things on the wall without telling me. I just walked away to be alone for a few hours, then we spoke. She said it happened over the summer when we weren't speaking. I reminded her that we weren't speaking because of something that happened when I called her out for being controlling. I was sick of it. I said she uses force and has no idea how to connect. I literally told her this would have been a perfect situation to try to connect with me. Nope. She controlled the situation again and got rid of really sentimental things that I had no say in. Why didn't I bring it up earlier? My sister, who is 10 years younger, was living in that room and insisted on keeping the decor. My mom said I had to leave everything for her when I went to college. Then my sister loved my freshman year bedding, and my mom said I had to give it to her because we had no money. I bought new stuff for sophomore year, and I still have that to this day. My mom said I have to stop holding grudges, which I'm not, and get off my pedestal. I told her it's something I got over years ago, but that I recognize it's a pattern and she never changes. She got defensive and said that I push people away and it's hard to get close to me. I said I just want to be treated right and don't care about how she's trying to put me down and control me again. So that was probably the fight, but it was calm, as I'm a calm person. Story 13. A month ago, my mom went out of the country to see family, and my dad took her absence as an opportunity to kidnap the family cat. He took her out of state to our grandmother's house and left her there for company. The cat is 14 years old, antisocial, and has never lived anywhere but our house. Dad swore up and down that the cat liked it better there, and no one could see otherwise. Lo and behold, when we got there, the cat was hiding under Grandma's bed and hadn't come out in weeks. She was not well. Thus began a 6-person argument, including in-laws, over where the cat should live and who she now belonged to. The cat is still at Grandma's. Story 14. Mashed potatoes. My husband has been putting rosemary in them lately, and it completely overpowers the dish. I have not said anything because he's been doing the cooking, and I know when to keep my big mouth shut, even though mashed potatoes are one of my favorite things. So, for Thanksgiving, I handled the planning and grocery shopping, and purposely did not buy any rosemary. I was so excited to have mashed potatoes my way for Turkey Day. Well, he got sent to the store for something we forgot, and the sneaky fool bought rosemary and slipped it into the mashed potatoes without my knowing. No, my plans foiled, mashed potatoes ruined. That was the moment my secret loathing of his mashed potatoes came out, and he was highly offended that I had pretended to like his rosemary version. And so began the mashed potato war of 2025. I refused to eat the offensive potatoes, and he took a heaping helping. We are both far too stuffed right now to continue the battle, but we may go for round 2 when it is time for leftovers. Story 15. 30 seconds after I walked in the door was all it took. My niece was trying to tell me a story, and my mom kept calling my name to get my attention about something my nephew said. I said twice, "Hold on," and had my finger out, letting her know to wait. She must have called my name at least 5 or 6 times, getting louder each time. I finally snapped and yelled, "What the hell do you want? My niece is talking to me." The icing on the cake came a few minutes later when she said, "Now that you're done yelling at me, let's go into the kitchen," as if I was the problem. I flat out told her what she did was rude, and I was pissed off for the first 45 minutes of our visit. Story 16. My elderly mother-in-law got combative because my father-in-law wanted to turn on her TV, and my husband was helping him set it up with his hearing aids, which mess up the regular audio. She completely flipped out at them and at me for trying to tell her to calm down, assuring her we could fix it before her nightly Hallmark movie. She went ballistic and even started throwing things around in the kitchen. She is fried from being my father-in-law's caretaker and has always been very anxious and controlling. But this time, her reaction was different. She was raging. I hope she isn't showing early signs of dementia, but I plan to encourage my husband to convince her to get a checkup. They are also in desperate need of day-to-day help. We live out of town, but they are very resistant. Story 17. Not an argument, but my brother and I are very close. His wife died about 2 years ago. I have been with him through his journey of grief and have fully supported him through his terrible loss. Today, we were getting ready to sit down for Thanksgiving dinner with family, and he was on the couch texting. I was joking with him. We joke constantly, and said that if he could stop scrolling long enough, he would be able to enjoy the feast with the rest of us. He looked at me and said he was texting friends of his late wife, who were wishing him a happy Thanksgiving and saying how much they miss her. Then he said, I should remember that this is his second Thanksgiving without her, and that I should know that. It really hurt to hear him say that. I had been through her cancer, her passing, and spent several months at his house helping get it ready for sale because he couldn't bear to stay there. He and I were both quiet during dinner, and afterward, I went to lie down and had a little cry. He didn't say anything to me for the rest of the night. It really sucked to have that happen. Story 18. MAGA uncle started on my boyfriend and me for being sinners, and on my mom for letting 2 sinful people live in her house. My brother arrived about 10 minutes into the conversation. He's a trans man, and MAGA uncle hadn't seen him since his transition 2 years ago. Uncle started attacking him, calling him an abomination in the eyes of the Lord. My brother promptly handed him a $100 bill, told him to F off, go get himself some KFC, and leave us alone. MAGA uncle grumbled, but surprisingly, left. And it's been a nice day since. Story 19. My uncle kept interrupting polite conversation about how my cousin's husband was doing after his recent stroke, making jokes that it was actually AIDS and claiming, my cousin has 4 husbands. We were doing well at ignoring him and keeping him out of the conversation until my husband asked if he even knew the difference between AIDS and strokes. This same uncle, in previous years, called my brother's Latina ex-girlfriend an invasive species in reference to my brother's work in wildlife and parks. And he keeps implying my friends are lesbians with no context or basis. He's literally only met them a handful of times. You always have that one D-head who can't get through a family meal without stirring things up, and it's incredibly frustrating. Story 20. My sister-in-law argued with my mom about a family heirloom serving dish that she insists my grandmother wanted her to have. My mom finally gave up and said she could take it home, and my sister-in-law was smug for the rest of the night. My mom let me in on a secret, though. It's not a family heirloom. My grandmother bought it at a Dollar Tree 6 years ago, around the time my brother brought his wife around. She had been coveting this cheap dish for 6 freaking years. My mom's reaction? One less dish to wash. That woman is a Thanksgiving savage. Story 21. I was working in the ER and saw people post-Thanksgiving dinner. The panic attacks, the heart attacks, the guy who needed stitches because his team lost and he punched the TV, the grandma who quickly drank herself into a comatose state, blood alcohol of 0.25, and had to listen to her husband berate the staff. I could see why. The kid who got into someone's pills while his parents argued instead of comforting him, or the woman who needed stitches and a restraining order because her husband threw a beer bottle at her over the gravy being too thick. Story 22. Not the whole family, but my cousin got into a huge fight with her husband, and he went into their room and pouted for almost the entire day. I was playing chess against their 7-year-old at the time, so I didn't get the full picture, but it seemed like she was making passive-aggressive comments about him not helping enough. He blew up, started acting really childish, and told her to stop talking, which I didn't like. The thing about her husband is that he's kind of an annoying pseudo-intellectual. He talks down to people and is actually a lot less mature than he seems to think. My aunt really didn't like him at first. I thought he was a little cringy, but I trust my cousin's judgment. We've all just gotten used to it, but every once in a while he does stuff like this that reminds you why he rubbed people the wrong way initially. Story 23. No arguing, but I think I pissed off my sister-in-law because I made my own stuffing and used instant mashed potatoes. I'm picky about the stuffing. I never liked the way my mom made hers either. I prefer the taste of stovetop stuffing compared to what my mom made, or what my sister-in-law makes. Their stuffing is more like bread sludge and has too much broth in it. As for the potatoes, I would normally eat the mashed potatoes, but I'm on dialysis now. I can't have mashed potatoes unless they're made a certain way, and she won't make them like that. It's not hard. You bring the potatoes to a boil, drain, and rinse them. Then boil them again until they're cooked. The first boil leaches out a lot of the potassium in the potatoes, making them safe for me to eat. Instant potatoes are also low in potassium because of the process used to make the flakes, so they're safe as well. Too much potassium can stop my heart and be fatal, so in general, I have to avoid foods high in potassium. In addition to that, anything high in sodium or phosphorus is off limits as well. Too much sodium can cause the heart to seize, and excess phosphorus can make your bones brittle and lead to a host of other health issues. Because of this, a huge portion of my normally favorite foods are off limits, yet people still seem offended when I say, I can't eat that, at family dinners, as if I just don't like their food. That's not the case. My diet simply limits what I can and cannot eat. Story 24. I couldn't go because I have epilepsy and don't drive. Thanksgiving was at my parents' house, about 2 hours away. My husband had to work and couldn't get the day off. No one could come get me and my daughter. There wasn't any room in the car. My parents are older and not in great health, so we made plans to visit them next weekend instead. My husband and I go up there often, more than my other siblings do. Did that stop anyone from sending guilt-tripping texts? Of course not. Apparently I was supposed to sprout wings or something. Someone even suggested taking an Uber or Lyft, even though that's not really an option in my area for a long trip like that. And even if it were, it would cost a fortune, and I'm not taking my young child in a stranger's car for 2 hours, and then hoping a ride home would even be available later. Anyway, they're all mad at me. Oh well. Story 25. I made a joke about refrigerator ice being ICE. My parents said they love what ICE has been doing, rounding up undocumented immigrants and deporting them. My grandparents replied, "Hope you also like higher prices on any products in the US with the backbone workers in this country being deported." My parents doubled down, saying they shouldn't be here in the first place. Grandma told us to drop it and stop with the politics. Dad yelled at her for bringing up politics, and I jumped in, saying it was my fault and he shouldn't be barking at her for something I did. Story 26. Oh God. So, I got roped into a fight over text. I'm several hours away from where my parents live, so I do most celebrating with my fiancé and his family. We're getting married soon, and my mom told my alcoholic uncle that my cousins would not be invited. I have a lot of cousins, and 90% of them I haven't seen in 10 to 20 years. I couldn't pick them out of a police lineup. Why would I invite them? My uncle started texting me some really weird stuff. I think he was trying to threaten that he and another uncle wouldn't come because I wasn't inviting their sons, and that if I did invite them, we would get a massive wedding gift. He kept referring to himself as arrogant. It was a mess. Very bribey, and basically treating my nuptials like I should be honored to have him and his son there, even though I haven't seen either in over 15 years. I let my mom know he was texting me. She told me he was drunk. I told him his son was still not invited, and that it was unfortunate he decided he couldn't go. He sent 13 paragraph-long texts. I could understand maybe 6 of them. Definitely all angry. Family this, family that. I updated my mom. She said not to worry. Then I shut my phone off and ate some gingerbread bars. Story 27. My aunt had an argument with my fiancé about immigration. My aunt is Mexican from Tijuana, and my fiancé is from Guatemala. They got into a rant about immigration, and then my aunt started talking about Central American immigrants and how they ruined Tijuana with the caravans. As if Tijuana wasn't already struggling just for being a border town, a place where many people get deported to or cross from. My fiancé was understandably very offended. He mentioned narcos and how they ruined Mexico, and both my aunts got offended, pointing out that Guatemala also has narcos. Then they started arguing about Guatemala, and my aunt began insisting she knew more about the country than him because her children's father, my cousin's dad, is Guatemalan and had told her all his stories about the country. My fiancé was so heated that he left and went home. I thought he was leaving to work, but he was just so angry after talking to her. She kept talking over him, and he said he didn't want to be around my family except for my parents. We're having my gender reveal, organized by my mom on Sunday, and both his brothers will be coming. I really want to cancel it because I know it'll probably turn into a shit show with my aunts there. Story 28. My grandpa ate my 9-year-old daughter's ice cream bar, which I had gotten her as a reward for helping clean and cook for Thanksgiving. She had set it down on the table and walked into the kitchen to grab a Ziploc bag. Literally 10 seconds. He came in from outside, saw it on the table where he had been sitting, and proceeded to open it and eat it. He didn't even ask any of the 4 other people at the table who it belonged to or where it came from. We weren't even serving ice cream, and it was in an individual box, so it clearly didn't come from a larger pack. I was late for work trying to make her feel better as she stood in the kitchen on the verge of tears. So rude. Story 29. The argument started over being anti-vaccine, but quickly shifted to questioning whether my credentials as a doctor of occupational therapy were valid, due to the recent delegation of professional degrees for students considered professionals by student loan standards. My point, that vaccines ultimately save lives, was quickly lost. Then it got personal. My brother openly stated that anyone who needs rehabilitation services should just be left to die, including our father, who died of pancreatic cancer 10 years ago. He also criticized my decision to collaborate with the MD at the time for the best course of care, calling it weak for asking about life-saving measures when it came to end-of-life decisions. For context, I want to work in palliative care for terminal patients, specifically to improve quality of life for cancer patients. Needless to say, it did not end well. Story 30. Skydiving training. We help out my lesbian best friend's parents a lot, and during one of our errand runs, I may have spun a tale that she was taking lessons to skydive. Her mother was horrified at the idea and threatened to beat her with a shoe. The friend dodged the shoe, but I got smacked in the shoulder repeatedly. So, when they came over for dinner, I may have sent some hastily doctored AI photos of my friend in an indoor skydiving facility. Oh, and punching a seagull while indoor skydiving, part of the training holding her up. When her mother saw them, she started yelling at her daughter about still doing this craziness and making my grandson an orphan. Her grandson and his uncle then ran with it, claiming they'd been to the facility too, and that she'd tried to get her son to join in. After overcoming the shock at the betrayal, my friend managed to change the subject after a few minutes of yelling. I received many muttered threats of violence. Oh, also, Her mother is hard of hearing and has a habit of flubbing words, sometimes to hilarious effect. Putting on the football game led her mom to talk about the time my friend played flag football. Mom, it was so cold out there. Why was it always cold when you were playing flag football? The table, full of LGBTQ people. Mortified silence. Mom, but we were always out there supporting our tiny. We'd always be watching from the sidelines, trying to see her. She'd be right in the middle, and we'd ask, did she catch the fag? Me, she sure did. She punched me in the shoulder. I regret nothing. Story 31. One of my relatives is a crime analyst who works with cybercrimes, including CSAM. She told someone a while back that she faked evidence at the request of a detective sergeant in her department. They didn't have any real evidence on a suspect, and the detective said he was a really bad guy, and he was going to walk if they didn't find anything. He made it sound like the man was actively trading or producing CSAM, but it turned out he was just an a-hole. The detective hated him and couldn't let go of his ego. My relative cooperated and found CSAM on a computer seized during a raid that was completely unfounded, based on a warrant built entirely on fabricated lies. The man is now facing decades in prison and is going through an appeal that could expose that police department to numerous fraudulent investigations, though it is unlikely they will hold the officers accountable. My relative said they had done it a couple of times, linking a bunch of stolen property to a defendant they knew was burglarizing businesses, even without any evidence, attaching fingerprints to evidence logs that had nothing to do with the case, but belonged to someone they knew was a really bad guy who would never get prosecuted if they didn't get him on something. I didn't go to the festivities. When my relative's spouse asked me why I wasn't going, over the phone, with them on speakerphone, I bluntly told them that their spouse was a corrupt cop and that I had enough details to hand over to the courts handling the cases. I didn't realize the corrupt cop relative could hear me, nor that the person who called had no idea about any of this. This led to a serious argument, and they didn't even hang up the phone. Later, I got a call from an elderly relative threatening to cut me out of their will if I turned in the corrupt cop relative because it would ruin their career. Story 32. My alcoholic cousin, who had probably been drunk for days, sat down next to me, interrupted my conversation, and started going on about how tariffs are good for America because we are beating China. He then loudly talked over me and yelled anytime I tried to respond. I had been having a casual conversation about reality TV before he showed up. He always does this, never remembers, and then acts offended when nobody wants to be around him. This time, I kind of lost my crap and ended up yelling back at him about how he always does this stupid stuff, never remembers it, and how the older family members won't tell him to shut up, but I will. And honestly, it was great. Story 33. Dad's trust and will. While he's sitting right there. He's not dead, just extremely deaf after cancer took one ear. He refuses to admit it or get hearing aids. He's stubborn. So everyone has dropped the pretense of talking behind his back. My aunt, Dad's only sibling, thinks it's absurd that his girlfriend of over 40 years is getting 1/3. His girlfriend thinks it's absurd that my aunt is getting 1/3. They both insist he already helps the other one so much, which is true. He's helped both of them financially for decades. It's hilariously tone deaf. I'm his only child, and I also get 1/3. They seem to think I should pick a side in their feud so my 1/3 could become 1/2. Apparently, I'm the only person who doesn't already beg for handouts for essentials like solar panels. Families and money are a funny thing. I've seen people do relationship-destroying stuff for pennies. It's crazy. Story 34. I am a 75-year-old man. Thanksgiving was actually pretty peaceful overall. The only trouble came early today. I am partially disabled and a widower, and I live with my 44-year-old daughter and her family. This morning, her husband was sleeping in because something happened at his job, and he ended up working an extra shift, staying there until 5 o'clock this morning. My daughter was busy getting things ready for the big meal, and her 2 teenage kids still at home were being uncooperative about helping with some lighthouse cleaning. And it really was lighthouse cleaning. So, Grandpa finally decided he had enough of lazy teens and put in his 2 cents. I will admit I was not very pleasant about it, but the chores got done promptly and nobody died. So, no harm, no foul. Which was good because shortly after, their older sister arrived to see whether her mom needed help. And if she had seen her younger siblings sitting on their asses, well, she can be much worse than I am. Otherwise, there was just a little drama because one of our guests today was a teenage boy my 17-year-old granddaughter does not like. One of those silly teen things. In the past, she tried to show interest in him, and instead he ended up dating her best friend. She has been annoyed about that ever since. So she made a big deal about how she would not talk to him or be civil while he was in our home, and went on a rant about how she could not even stand seeing his face. How dare her mother invite him? Well, he is one of the two sons of a family friend, a man whose wife ran off with another man and left the boys with him. He has been doing his best this past year, trying to be a good parent while also needing to work. He can cook, as long as it is simple. My daughter and son-in-law invited him and the boys to our home for Thanksgiving. He is a good man, and his sons are decent boys. I have seen them at their worst and at their best, and the good far outweighs everything else. Shortly before they arrived, my daughter, having had enough of her daughter bad-mouthing that boy, took her into a private room. I do not know what was said in there, but it was clearly a one-way conversation, and a loud one. Knowing my daughter, my granddaughter was probably reminded that it was not her house, that she was acting like a child, and then came the big hammer. She was likely reminded that being civil is required, and that having a car and driving is a privilege, not a right. That reminder works on her every time. She loves her car and being able to drive to see her friends. We live in a rural area, so walking to visit anyone would take quite a while. Anyway, she got her act together by the time everyone arrived and was actually quite pleasant during the event. So, it was a good Thanksgiving. 15 people all together. Afterward, one group played Monopoly, another group was on the Xbox, and we adults spent a couple of hours chatting and playing with my 2-year-old great-grandson. Our 4 German Shepherds got a very special Thanksgiving meal of their own. I even remembered to give my pet turtle, Freddy, a nice crisp piece of apple and part of a banana. The little guy is now about the size of a small dinner plate, maybe 7 to 7.5 inches at the shell. He is a red-eared slider. Story 35. I told my 14-year-old niece and 15-year-old daughter that they have the same voice. Neither of them believed me. I turned it into a game where everyone at the table had to close their eyes, and one of them would say something while we guessed who it was. Most people got it wrong, most rounds. That was it. That was the drama. My niece and daughter simply refused to believe. They sounded the same. Story 36. I didn't end up going at the last minute. My brother and his girlfriend started conflict with me during a very difficult period in my life over the last several months. One bad conversation between us left me hurt and upset. I took some time, called him weeks later, and he went off even more, doubling down and being abusive. That last incident was a couple of weeks ago, and I chose not to go, especially since he was hosting. It was the first holiday I've spent alone in my entire life. I'm glad I didn't go. No regrets there, but it still hurts. Story 37. Lol, just a slight hiccup. I invited our elderly neighbor, he's a widower and lives alone, over for Thanksgiving dinner, without talking to my husband first. My husband has some anxiety, and when I told him, he mildly freaked out. He got over it, and all was well. The kicker is that the neighbor didn't show, which is fine. I had told him it was a no-pressure invite. I just wanted him to know he didn't have to be alone if he didn't want to. Story 38. Stepmom refused all help offered while preparing the meal and doing the dishes, and then complained all evening that nobody helped. Also, I'm getting married next year, and did not invite her brothers for a variety of reasons. In the middle of complaining about not getting any help, she berated me for talking about my wedding, in front of people who weren't invited. People I'm not even related to, when they were the ones who asked me about it, and clearly didn't care. Story 39. I got in a fight with my husband because every time I ask him to take a picture of me, he rolls his eyes. I ask maybe twice a year. Today, our daughter and I were all dressed up and he friggin' rolled his eyes again, took some crooked pictures, and I lost my shit. After everything I do on a daily basis, he can't do this one frigging thing for me. Story 40. Not a single thing, which is why I go to my in-laws' house. I avoided get-togethers like the plague for the first 10 years of my marriage. I always had to work, and they had no idea how often I volunteered. But when people started getting married and graduating, I felt I had to go, and it was mind-blowing. There might be disagreements on a topic, but never any arguments, much less fights. My own family, fisticuffs weren't even unusual. Now I love going to their place for holidays. I thought it was just like that on TV, but no. These people really do just shrug things off. I've even seen pro-con Trump discussions that never got loud. Nothing gets personal or angry. That is family. I am so glad to be a part of it. Story 41. My 14-year-old daughter is trying to decide whether to focus on soccer or guitar. She brought out her guitar today and played for the family. She is so good and completely self-taught. My professional musician cousin was impressed and said she is super advanced for her age. She also made her high school varsity soccer team. My sport-obsessed father-in-law was uninterested and negative about her playing guitar, saying she should focus on soccer. I mean, why can't she do both? All he cares about is sports. If someone has a talent in the arts, he always discounts it as useless. So annoying, but I guess it's better than bringing up politics. Story 42. My dad asked me how much weight I've gained over the past year. I told him to stop being an a-hole, and he said, "Well, you said I'm not allowed to talk about politics, so I'm just going to call you fat whenever I want to make you mad." Before I left, I arranged his collection of plastic Jesuses in compromising positions. Haven't received any phone calls yet, so I'm assuming it has gone unnoticed thus far. Story 43. My mother teases my 1.5-year-old daughter by mocking her crying and the faces she makes. The last time it happened, she saw me getting frustrated and asked what the problem was. I told her I didn't appreciate her doing that, took a softer stance given the holidays, and she said that people tease each other all the time. I started to get into it with her, but stopped for the sake of the holiday vibe because I can address it another day, and because she has always teased me the same mean-spirited way. She's admitted to my wife in the past, when my wife asked why she spoke to me like that she thinks it's funny to get a rise out of me. She's never going to change, so I just have to set stronger boundaries to protect my little girl. Story 44. My mother's boyfriend of 30 years, who never brings anything or contributes in any way, had a meltdown because there was no ice cream to go with the apple pie. I had gotten him a shirt and a bag of candy for his birthday, which is the same week. He asked to return the bag of candy, which I knew he had already eaten, for cash. So I handed him the cash value and ate the candy myself. I seriously may need to start taking solo holiday vacations. It's just not worth it. Story 45. I wore a shirt that said, "Parry this, you filthy casual," featuring an armored knight pointing a gun. My father-in-law immediately started going on about how you couldn't possibly parry a bullet. My brother-in-law jumped in to give his 2 cents. He and I started coming up with ways to parry a bullet while father-in-law pointed out flaws and posed "okay, but what if" scenarios. Then the nephews joined in and shared their takes. My mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and nieces chimed in, saying how dumb us boys are, but they also gave their thoughts, quickly debunked or scrutinized to hell. My wife and I laughed our asses off on the drive home, realizing we had spent almost 2 hours debating bullet pairing mechanics and how they apply to the real world. Story 46. My sister served the jellied cranberry sauce on the wrong dish. She foolishly used the long, skinny matched china dish instead of the long, skinny carnival glass dish my grandmother won at a fair 60 years ago. She did this despite knowing that my mother, who, and I cannot stress this enough, always serves cranberry sauce in her mother's carnival glass dish, which doesn't match anything else in the house. In my mother's defense, she is a bit touchy. Her mother only just died in 2004, and I'm sure the wound is still fresh. Story 47. This is more about an avoided argument. In life, we can choose to grow or stay the same. Here's a little snippet of our journey. We have a 6-month-old and no family close by, so I thought we would just chill, eat leftovers, and put up the tree. My husband went out to get some last-minute groceries and proudly told me he was making a surprise. At first, I was excited. I usually do most of the elaborate cooking, until he said, "Trust me, you'll like it." He said it in a way that made me think I probably wouldn't like it, but he wanted me to try it. We aren't good at keeping surprises, so before the day was over, he decided to tell me it was shepherd's pie. I've always been a super picky eater, but now that I'm breastfeeding, that's all changed. Hunger really is the best spice. Still, I've never been a fan of casseroles. So many textures all smooshed together in one thick, soupy substance. I was thinking, oh, a pot pie. I can stomach that. The dry crust helps combat the thick soup texture. No, my husband tells me, shepherd's pie is different. Apparently you take mashed potatoes. It took me forever to come around to that texture. And a thick meat and vegetable stew and pile it all on top of each other. I questioned his thinking, because that sounded like my worst nightmare. Instead of getting offended, yay, therapy, I asked him to keep my potatoes and meat stew separate. Yes, I know, childish. We went for a nice long walk, and even with leftover spaghetti as an appetizer, I was starving. He was up in the kitchen, cooking away, and it smelled so good. I went up for water and said, "You know what? Don't keep mine separate. I'll try it as is." The hunger must have really been getting to me because I couldn't believe I actually said those words. When it was finally ready, he served me a plate. I cautiously took a bite, bracing for my gag reflex with the mashed potatoes and chunks of meat. Holy crap. It was delicious. I happily told him so, surprising myself and feeling good about enjoying his hard work. Come to find out, it was his favorite dish that his mom used to make for Thanksgiving. The last time we saw her was on Thanksgiving a few years ago. Old me, rigid me, would have put up a fight and gotten offended that he didn't consider my preferences when choosing a dish. New me was open and willing to try something new. I'm so glad I did because I surprised myself, encouraged my husband, and the meaning behind the meal made it that much better. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Story 48. We had a great Thanksgiving day. It was truly wonderful. Then I drove home by myself. Suddenly, a woman zoomed up behind me on the freeway, tailgating. I brake-checked her. She followed me even more closely, then tried to pass me in the right lane. I blocked her efforts by doing the same. She changed lanes again and finally passed me. I flipped her off, and it was a close family friend from Thanksgiving. She saw me. I saw her. Her face made a giant O shape. I was mortified, beyond embarrassed, even a little ashamed. I got home and confessed to my wife what I had done. Right then, I decided to text or call her and immediately apologize. And I did. We hopped on the phone. I apologized. She apologized. And we both ended up laughing so hard about it. We even agreed we could both be less reactive drivers. As crazy as it sounds, it actually made us closer. I'm grateful she forgave me and found the humor in the situation. Story 49. Politics. My mom's boyfriend thinks gay marriage should be a crime because, according to the Bible, God said only a man and a woman can be wed. I asked him if he believes all our laws are based on religion, because if they were, he would be arguing with them, and reminded him that it's incredibly important to separate religion from law. I also told him that it is his opinion, and he is entitled to it, even though I think he's wrong. Freedom is part of America, and if he wants that to change, he should move to another country. Unfortunately, I know I'm partially wrong about how things are going with Trump in office. Also, if he really wants to argue that gay marriage is a sin, then his relationship with my mom for 8 years is a sin too. They are not married. His swearing is a sin. His lies about my mom are a sin. His lust is a sin. If we're going strictly by the Bible, I guess his eyes should be gouged out for lusting over women. But what do I know? I'm so sick of Christians and their hypocrisy. Story 50. My sister called to return my Happy Thanksgiving call, and we ended up yelling at each other over hurt feelings and how we treat one another. Same shit, different year. This year's emotional ammunition included me being completely alone because my wife divorced me this year after buying a house halfway across the country. Her first serious boyfriend in a long while broke up with her last night, coincidentally the day before he was supposed to meet our parents, and she was wrongfully terminated from her dream job of 2 years. Just another couple of estranged siblings feeling awful about their lives and taking it out on one another. Story 51. We had no arguments, but when I put the mashed potatoes back on the stove because they got cold, my mother-in-law added water to them. It was too much. Then she forgot she did it and kept telling me they wouldn't have to be recooked for so long if I hadn't put so much water in them. She blamed me no less than 4 times in 10 minutes. I said nothing. LMAO. No argument. Story 52. We started shenanigans by smoking the turkeys and a duck separately instead of taking up the entire oven with their royal fat selves. It turned out delicious, but that's not really how you prepare a turkey. Why the duck? Because it was even more delicious, and the permanently starving twin teenage boys loved it. Then I put manicotti on the serving table. Starving teenagers approved. Add one who doesn't like turkey or duck. The pan was empty, so nothing went to waste. We also served the dreaded stovetop dressing because the kids like it, and it didn't take up oven space. I put balsamic glazed roasted Brussels sprouts on the table and skipped the green bean casserole that no one eats. Other roasted vegetables made an appearance too, but no soup casserole. My coworker from somewhere in the Midwest brought a raspberry pretzel dessert and an apple pie thing with cream cheese and Cool Whip. No idea what it was, but it was delicious. Auntie was very mad no one touched her unseasoned pumpkin pie. I let the 23-year-old be in charge of buying the ice and drinks. Hey, she did bring non-alcoholic drinks too, but apparently she was supposed to help cook. She worked until 1 p.m., so she didn't have time. I refused to get proper dinner plates. Yep, I'm the worst. I got dollar store plastic divider platters. With 49 people over, including several who didn't want their manicotti encroaching on their mashed yams, it made sense. I then had the teenagers wash them. Now they're in a storage bin until next time. Cheaper than rental dishes and made 48 people happy. Apparently someone got upset that the older teens and early 20s were outside playing Cards Against Humanity. Not appropriate, apparently. Didn't bother me. They weren't under my feet, and I'm not their parent. My 6-year-old refused to hug her grandfather, who she hasn't seen since she was 2. That went over really well. He's usually the one skipping family gatherings, so I was surprised he even showed up. The usual war over who's holding all the car keys because of various party substances being consumed. Yes, well, sober driver or crash on the floor. Keep pushing. And the story on why will be broadcast, even if you were the one who got a DUI leaving mom's house some 7 years ago. I could refuse to host, but really, it's not that bad, besides the handful of complainers. Plus, I've got a room full of 19 to 21-year-old college kids for the night. I'm making them French toast in the morning. Story 53. Whether or not to take FEL to the hospital. He looked like death. Couldn't maintain consciousness, running a fever, back pain, vomiting, and in a lot of pain. He couldn't keep a train of thought, and his urine was dark brown. I figured he was at least severely dehydrated, but he might also be having the start of a stroke or something. I'm not a, doctor, but he's usually very alert and ready to argue about politics, religion, and other divisive topics as soon as we walk through the door. This time, he wasn't. Finally, convinced them to take him in. The doctors agreed he was a concern and triaged him right into a room. They confirmed he has a UTI and is dehydrated, but they didn't think that explained everything, since he couldn't seem to understand them at all. They kept him overnight. Hopefully, he's doing better this morning. Story 54. I placed my mom in in-home hospice care a week ago. I was providing her care 24/7 around the nurses. On Thanksgiving Eve, I found out that her partner had coerced a last-minute will that excluded me and her other daughter, leaving everything to him. He had also put them in substantial debt and planned to sell the home after her passing, all while having the daughters provide end-of-life care, while he would walk away with a home that had tripled in equity. When he found out that I knew, I was forced to leave the house and leave my mother, dying of lung cancer, in his care. I don't even know if he will allow the nurses back in. Adult Protective Services and hospice are aware, but my mom is lucid and can still legally make her own choices. To my knowledge, the legal battle would cost more than the estate is worth. The stress alone caused me to lose 10 pounds in 1 week. I drove away, feeling like I had just buried my mom alive. Story 55. My wife and I argued after we discovered that the chicken I was about to cook had leaked all over the bottom shelf of the fridge and into the vegetable drawers. I began to feel flustered because, on top of preparing to cook the chicken, stuffing, mashed potatoes, macaroni and cheese, and Brussels sprouts, I now had to deal with the mess. She tried to offer some feedback, but when I asked her to clean it so I could focus on cooking, she became annoyed and acted as though it was my problem because I had chosen to make Thanksgiving dinner for us, her friend, and her friend's son. Story 56. It started before we even arrived with a phone call from my cousin complaining about her daughter, my niece, and telling me I was smart not to have children because you have no idea how hard it is. It never occurred to her that it might not be possible for me or that my life is far more complicated than she realizes. When you live like Scarlett O'Hara with no planning or forethought, chaos is inevitable. She is far too selfish to consider anything that doesn't revolve around her. And the fact that I would lay down my life for that girl doesn't matter because I didn't give birth to her. Then, of course, the moment she has an audience, she acts like the mother of the year. Story 57. My mom was in charge of cooking the turkey after not being trusted with it for years. Our oven is broken again, so we decided to use my smoker, just like we did last year for the same reason. She put the turkey in, frozen, starting at 9 in the morning. It didn't come off the heat until 7 in the evening because she insisted it had to stay in there until it reached well above 165 degrees. I said it would be fine to pull it at 150 degrees since holding that temperature for over 4 minutes kills salmonella just as effectively as 165 degrees for 10 seconds. She yelled at me that my food handler's license was expired. It's not. I just don't work in food service anymore, and that hers wasn't, even though she was fired from her food service job for gross incompetence. According to her, that meant I had no idea what I was talking about and was going to poison everyone. Story 58. I asked someone to check if the glass pie dish was on top of the cabinet, and somehow it escalated into my grown son and my husband yelling at me while my grown daughter just stood there watching. They never act like that. I finished the dish I was making and then went to the bedroom to rest for the rest of the day. I told them they could fix their own things. They're lucky I was making anything at all, given my declining health. I might not even be here next year. And this is how they chose to act. Story 59. Not my family. I had Thanksgiving dinner with a girl I've been seeing. And not quite an argument, but one of her family members was bragging about how much she reads and how she has nothing left to read. I suggested the Warhammer 40K Horus Heresy series. She claimed she had already read all of it, 64 books in total, with the last one only coming out this January. Personally, I made it through about 34 books before taking a break from the series and from reading in general. I noped out of that conversation so fast. Sure, I could have argued with her, and it would have been pretty obvious she was talking out of her A, but that didn't seem like a great idea when meeting her family for the first time. You cannot, in a million years, BS your way through a conversation about Warhammer 40K. Story 60. Every year, my mom slaves away in the kitchen from 10 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. She cooks 6 dishes, including both the turkey and the ham, for about 16 people. And every year, without fail, as people arrive, they wander into her kitchen, get in her way, dump their store-bought sides wherever there's space, and then try to give her hugs and make small talk while she's cooking. So, this year, I put up a sign that simply said, "Let her cook." And please do not loiter in the kitchen. Needless to say, next year, she'll only be cooking for 12 people. Story 61. My uncle on one side of the family and my cousin on the other got into a discussion, really more of an argument, about why young, primarily white men are falling behind women and other minority groups in test scores, college admissions, employment, and so on. It was interesting and informative, and I enjoyed seeing my uncle get his pot stirred. Traditionally, he's the one to bring up controversial topics when two people with opposing views are present, then sit back, enjoy the show, and occasionally play devil's advocate. My cousin stayed calm, offering well-reasoned, respectful answers, while he gradually lost his composure. It was fascinating to watch, especially since they normally get along well. I did walk away wondering if my uncle might be an incel, which wasn't great, but overall, it was a compelling conversation to witness. Story 62. My mom likes to judge and subtly lecture people she thinks are overweight about their eating habits. I had to tell her for the umpteenth time to let our guest enjoy this special meal. Nobody needed a lecture. It's usually aimed at me, but I've lost 40 pounds recently. This time, it was aimed at our friend. She ruins almost every restaurant or group meal, telling everyone, who is usually still eating, how little she eats and how overeating or even just finishing a meal is wrong. She's so judgmental and hides it poorly. It ruins the enjoyment of most meals. It's like, good for you that you've lost a bunch of weight, but nobody asked for your counsel on someone else's eating habits. Let people enjoy the damn meal for F's sake. Story 63. My husband is getting over being sick, so he slept most of the day. Most everything was already cooked, but he made the turkey and stuffing before going back to bed. I had cleaned the entire house over the past 2 days. We have a brand new puppy, and I'm in my master's program with a high-stress job that's both physically and mentally demanding. So when my mom showed up and went into full manual mode, I damn near lost it. Sure, you can help put things away. Yes, you do know where everything is. The kitchen is small, and nothing has moved in the 10 years we've been here. Yes, you know how to find a lid. They're next to the Tupperware. We specifically got new Tupperware so they all match. If you can't find a lid right now, just use tin foil temporarily. There should be spoons. If you can't find a spoon, use a spatula to scrape the bowl. For good measure, she doesn't have a vitamin deficiency or early onset dementia. She has weaponized incompetence. Story 64. The menu. I always make a cheese ball, which everyone loves. My dad told me not to make it and to bring a dessert instead. But my mom was already making 3 pies. We only had 9 people attending, so it felt pointless. Also, my dad told my sister to bring green bean casserole, when we've traditionally had broccoli casserole, so no one was happy about that. Oh, and my dad told me to be there at 1 p.m. But what he actually meant was get there by 12:30 to 12:45, and we would eat at 1 p.m. So my mom called me at 12:55 while I was driving over, about 5 minutes away, to make sure I was coming because my nephew was getting hungry. Like, don't tell me one thing, but really mean another. Story 65. Banana bread. We potluck our Thanksgiving, so mom makes the turkey and the rest of us bring all the sides. I brought 5 dishes to the gathering, one of which was banana bread, which I made on a total whim. I thought it might be nice with a cup of coffee and to share with the family the next day. My sister made a point of insulting my banana bread 3 times that night. Why did you make this? Nobody wants this. Oh look, everyone ate my bread pudding. No one took your bread. Mind you, we had 8 different desserts, and I had mostly intended for the bread to be taken home. The worst part was that she came dressed extra fancy while I dressed more simply because, as always, I washed all the dishes and serving platters for everyone so they could take their things home clean. So, while I was up to my elbows in dishwater, she was sitting there in her faux fur dress with extra long nails, insulting me for no reason. I told her off and, of course, was scolded by my mom for escalating the situation. No good deed goes unpunished. Story 66. M. My mom, sister, and brother-in-law wanted free family photos, ignored everything I said about lighting and angles, told me how to do my own job, and then yelled that they could just take the same thing on their phone. So I told them to go right ahead. PM. Dinner was ready. Plates were being made, and my sister made everyone stop so she could get aesthetic pictures of the kitchen island. My brother-in-law said something, I have no idea what, and she instantly snapped. The room went quiet. And the wild part? She's spinning the whole thing as me being difficult, simply because my professional guidance didn't fit the aesthetic fantasies she wanted to curate online. Meanwhile, she spent thousands on herself this month, has a $900 Christmas wish list, and will buy $600 shoes, but complain when her son needs a new golf club or a baseball bat because he grew. Priorities, I guess. Story 67. We were at my husband's parents' house. His eldest brother, sister-in-law, and 2 teenage nieces from out of state were staying with them. We went over for lunch. After we ate and everything was cleaned up, we relaxed and sat around. We turned on Anne of Green Gables, Fire and Dew, because my mother-in-law and niece both enjoy it a lot. Their middle son came in, watched for a minute, and said, "It looks like it's only got a 1-star review at most." Later, when dividing up the leftovers, he called his mother Piggy. And by the way, he is almost 40. I wanted to slap him. Story 68. It was me this year. I'm the one who got mad. I went skiing and snowboarding with my inexperienced and relatively unprepared family and my experienced and on the spectrum boyfriend. It was like herding cats. At one point, my dad told me to meet up with my uncle, who was not where he said he would be. Then my boyfriend and I got separated from the rest of the family again, so I said we needed to find them to help them get started. My boyfriend, however, took the opportunity to not help, got on the lift, and left. After 10 minutes of freaking out and wondering where he went, he casually texted me to let me know. I responded that I was pissed. Instead of coming back and apologizing, he returned and tried to accuse me of abandoning him. I threw my glove at him and stormed off. When I finally found him again, he tried to minimize my anger and called it a miscommunication between us. It took another 2 hours of furious texting after leaving the hill for him to finally apologize for abandoning me at the beginning of the day. I'm usually pretty good at dealing with his autistic challenges calmly, but we might need therapy. Story 69. I argued with my mom about how to arrange the 2 tables together. She thought the best shape would be a T, but I said it made no sense because it would only add 1 extra place to sit when we needed 4. She said it would be hard to talk to people on the other end, which was a 2-year-old. I explained that it was an additional 3 feet that sound would need to travel. We didn't end up with the T. Story 70. My aunt on my mom's side went to inject her insulin after eating some pie and was talking about how diabetes runs in her family. My other aunt on my dad's side interjected and started a heated debate, insisting that diabetes can never be hereditary and is instead caused by generations of families eating the same diet. It got way too intense. Story 71. My husband kept bringing our dog downstairs to meet a friend's dog, even though it went poorly the first and second time. I told both of them I didn't want to deal with it anymore that night and that we needed a different strategy, like letting them get to know each other outside and on neutral territory another day. I said I wasn't comfortable and that it was giving me anxiety, but he kept doing it anyway. After the 3rd time, I finally got mad and read him the riot act privately about not caring about my feelings or respecting my wishes. He says I am wrong, that I'm being controlling, and is upset that he's not obeying my commands. Needless to say, we're still fighting. Story 72. Everything was fine, aside from some mother-in-law drama, long story, until my husband and his aunt got into political drama. It wasn't just random people spouting the usual nonsense. He was being outright nasty and rude to her, even catching the attention of his step-grandmother and dad. We were all like, what is going on? I had to snap at him to calm the F down. Either way, the short version is that my husband prides himself on being apolitical. He's a bit of a contrarian, so he tends to get worked up over other people's viewpoints, even if they mostly align with his own. He's developed a really hostile attitude toward political conversations to the point where he gets really blasted over it. I'm a very reserved person in public and hate drawing attention to myself. Lately, some of his behavior has bordered on attention-seeking, and this isn't the first time he's argued with her in particular. Earlier this year, the 4 of us, me, him, her, and his brother, went out for brunch and a political topic came up. Instead of discussing it, he just attacked the idea of even talking about it, and he was loud and hostile. I had to step in to get him to calm down. He's never behaved like that in public before. We've gotten into it in private over these topics, but he's never popped off at anyone else. I was sitting next to him, across from his relatives, and the looks on their faces were pure, I don't know you anymore horror. I felt so heartbroken for them. I was like, yeah, Morty the trash is my problem. First Wives Club quote. But no, do not be rude to your super kind brother and aunt over this. Like, what the hell? Honestly, I'm not sure what to do about it or how to help him. He has so much anger and hostility around all this, and it's only gotten worse over the last 5 years. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.